I never thought I would see my own name printed under the word suspect. Not in my 62 years on this earth. Not after a lifetime of keeping my head down, working hard, and staying out of trouble. But there it was. Black ink. White paper. And my name sitting where it never belonged. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm 62 years old. And before I tell you how I found my name on a crime report, let me say this. If you enjoy calm, real stories about truth, family, and the kind of justice that doesn't scream but sticks, please subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to the day my life quietly changed. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. I had just finished breakfast and was getting ready to head out for my morning walk. Doctor's orders. Heart still strong, he said, but don't push it. That's when I heard the knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just official. I opened the door and saw a man standing there. Mid-40s. Neutral face. Badge clipped to his belt. Mr. Daniel Brooks? He asked. Yes, I said, already feeling something tighten in my chest. I'm Detective Harris. May I come in for a moment? I hadn't done anything wrong. So of course I said yes. We sat at my dining table. The same table where my wife and I used to have Sunday dinners before she passed. The same table where my grandchildren colored pictures when they visited. The detective opened a folder. Mr. Brooks, he said calmly, have you ever been involved in a financial dispute with the Westfield storage facility? I frowned. Westfield? No. I don't even know what that is. He nodded slowly. Have you ever been to Franklin Avenue on the east side? No. He flipped a page. Do you recognize this signature? He slid a document toward me. My stomach dropped. It was my name. My full name. And underneath it, a signature that looked uncomfortably close to mine. I didn't sign that, I said immediately. He studied my face. I understand. But this document is part of an ongoing fraud investigation. And your name appears on the report. That sentence echoed in my head. Your name appears on the report. I felt like the air in the room had shifted. Am I in trouble? I asked quietly. He paused. That depends on what we find. After he left, the house felt different. Not unsafe. Just watched. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair across from me. I had spent my whole life being invisible in the best way. No drama. No police. No courts. I retired 3 years ago after working nearly 4 decades as a building maintenance supervisor. I fixed things. Lights. Pipes. Broken doors. I didn't break laws. So how did my name end up on a crime report? That night I barely slept. Every sound outside made me look toward the window. Every car passing slowed my breathing. The next morning, I decided to get answers. I went down to the police station myself. Not because I was scared, but because I believed in clearing things up early. The clerk at the front desk typed my name into the computer. Her expression changed. Not alarmed, but cautious. She asked me to wait. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. A different officer met me in a small room. No windows. Just a table and 2 chairs. He slid a thin stack of papers across the table. There was a series of storage unit break-ins, he said. Fraudulent rental agreements. Fake IDs. Missing inventory. He tapped the top page. One of the rental contracts is in your name. I looked down. There it was again. My name. My address. Even my date of birth. Someone hadn't just used my name. They had used me. I live alone, I said. I barely leave my neighborhood. He nodded. That's why we're still investigating. But until this is resolved, your name is attached to the case. Attached. Like a stain. When I got home, I did the one thing I hadn't done in years. I pulled out my old file cabinet. Tax returns? utility bills, insurance papers. I needed to know what else existed with my name on it. That's when I noticed something odd. A credit card statement I didn't recognize. Same bank. Different account number. I called the bank. After 20 minutes on hold, the woman on the line said, "Yes, Mr. Brooks, that account was opened about 8 months ago." "I didn't open it," I said. Silence. "Are you saying this isn't yours?" "I'm saying someone is pretending to be me." The account had charges I'd never made. Storage fees. Truck rentals. Hardware stores on the east side of town. My quiet life was being lived by someone else. That afternoon, my daughter called. She could hear it in my voice immediately. "Dad, what's wrong?" I told her the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. She tried to stay calm, but I could hear the fears slip through. "Dad, are you sure this isn't a mistake?" That hurt more than I expected. "I'm sure," I said gently. "I know my own life." After the call ended, I realized something else. Someone close to me had access to my information. My full name. My birth date. My old signatures. This wasn't random. That thought sat heavy in my chest. I started thinking back. 8 months ago. What changed 8 months ago? That's when I remembered. I had helped someone. A favor. A small one. Or so I thought. I won't say his name yet. But he was someone I trusted. Someone I never suspected. As the sun went down, I sat in my living room, lights off, just listening to the clock tick. Every tick felt like time slipping away. I didn't feel angry. I felt replaced. Someone was wearing my name like a coat. And the world was starting to believe it fit them better. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to panic. I was going to stay calm. And I was going to find the truth. Because if someone thought they could steal my name and walk away with my life, they didn't know me as well as they thought. That night, I didn't turn on the television. I didn't open a book. I just sat there, letting the quiet speak. When you live alone long enough, silence becomes familiar. But that night, it felt different. It felt like someone else was sitting in the room with me. Someone wearing my name. The next morning, I woke up with a strange kind of clarity. Fear was still there, yes, but it had settled into something calmer. Focus. I made coffee, the same way I always did. 2 scoops. No sugar. Routine matters when everything else feels uncertain. I sat at the table and wrote down everything I knew. Dates. Places. Names. 8 months ago. That was when it started. I went through my phone records. Then my email. Most of it was normal. Junk mail. Store ads. Old newsletters. But then I found something. An email confirmation. Buried deep. "Thank you for updating your contact information." I stared at the screen. I hadn't updated anything. The email came from a service I used years ago for document storage. The kind retirees used to keep copies of important papers. I logged in. Or tried to. My password didn't work. I clicked Forgot Password. The recovery email wasn't mine. That's when my hands started shaking. Someone had been patient. Careful. They hadn't rushed. They had stepped into my life slowly, quietly, like they belonged there. I drove to my daughter's house later that morning. I didn't call first. When she opened the door and saw my face, she knew something was wrong. "Dad?" she said. "You look tired." "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest." She nodded and sat me down. 8 months ago, I asked, "did anyone come to you asking about my information? My documents? Anything like that?" She thought for a moment. Then her face changed. "Uncle Mark," she said slowly. "He asked about your retirement paperwork. Said you told him to help organize things." My chest tightened. Mark. My wife's younger brother. He'd been around more since my wife passed. Always checking in. always offering help. I never told him that, I said. I thought it was strange, my daughter continued. But he knew things. Your social security number. Your old work address. I closed my eyes. Mark had stayed with us for a few weeks after the funeral. He said he needed time to get back on his feet. I never questioned it. Why would I? He was family. I thanked my daughter and drove home slowly. Every red light felt longer than usual. At home, I pulled out the old guest room drawer. That's where Mark had kept his things. The drawer was empty now. But I remembered something. A scanner. He'd brought a small portable scanner with him. Said he needed it for job applications. I had let him scan documents at my dining table. Bank statements. Old tax forms. My driver's license. At the time, it felt harmless. Now it felt devastating. I called Mark that afternoon. He answered on the third ring. "Danny," he said cheerfully. "How you holding up?" "Fine," I said. I had a question. "Sure. What's up? Did you ever use my name for anything official?" There was a pause. A small one. But I heard it. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean exactly what I said." He laughed lightly. "You're imagining things, Danny. You've been under a lot of stress." That sentence made something inside me go cold. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just said, "All right. Just checking." When I hung up, I knew. I didn't have proof yet. But I knew. The next step was uncomfortable. I went back to the police station. This time, I brought everything. Printouts. Emails. Account statements. The detective listened quietly. When I mentioned Mark's name, he wrote it down without reacting. "Do you have any reason to believe he had access to your personal documents?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "More than access. Permission." That word hung in the air. Permission. The detective nodded slowly. "We'll look into it," he said. "But until we can confirm identity misuse, the case stays open." "Does that mean I'm still a suspect?" "For now," he said carefully. "Your name is still on the report." I walked out of the station feeling heavier than when I walked in. That's when the social consequences started. A neighbor who used to wave stopped doing it. The clerk at my regular grocery store looked at me a second too long. News travels quietly in small towns. I could feel my reputation shifting. Not loudly. Just enough to hurt. One afternoon, I got a call from my bank again. "Mr. Brooks," the representative said, "there's been an attempt to withdraw funds from your primary account." "When?" I asked. "About an hour ago." "From where?" She named a branch across town. I wasn't there. But someone using my name was. I drove straight to that branch. When I walked in, the teller's eyes widened. "You were just here," she said. I felt a chill. "What did he look like?" I asked. She hesitated. "Similar build. Gray hair. Same last name. Mark was only 5 years younger than me." "Close enough." Security footage confirmed it. There he was. Wearing a jacket I recognized. Standing at the counter. Using my life like it belonged to him. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Not because I was afraid. But because I was finally angry. Not loud anger. Quiet, dangerous anger. I had lost my wife. I had lost years of peace. And now I was losing my name. I sat at my desk and made another list. Everything Mark had touched. Every account. Every document. Then I made one more decision. I stopped being friendly. Not on the outside. On the inside. I met with a lawyer the next day. A calm woman with sharp eyes. She listened. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "This is identity theft. And because of your age, it qualifies as elder fraud." That word, fraud, finally landed where it belonged. Not on me. On him. "We'll need patience," she continued. And documentation. I have time, I said. And I meant it. I walked out of her office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Mark thought borrowing my name was easy. He thought quiet men didn't fight back. He was wrong. And he was about to find out. The strange thing about being underestimated is that people stop watching you closely. They assume you're tired. Confused. Too old to push back. That assumption became my advantage. I didn't confront Mark again. Not after the phone call. Not after the security footage. I stayed polite. Distant. Quiet. I answered messages with short replies. I returned calls late. I let him think I was backing away. Meanwhile, I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. Every morning followed the same routine. Coffee. Notes. Phone calls. My lawyer advised me to change nothing outwardly. Let him stay comfortable, she said. People make mistakes when they feel safe. So I let him feel safe. I requested a full credit report. Not just one agency. All three. What came back made my stomach turn. Loans I never applied for. Addresses I never lived at. Utilities opened in my name. Mark hadn't just stolen my identity. He had expanded it. He had created an entire version of me that existed outside my control. One afternoon, while reviewing documents, I noticed something familiar. A handwriting pattern. Mark had always written his capital letters slightly tilted. My signature leaned straight. On several forms, the tilt showed through. Small detail. Big mistake. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. This helps, she said. Pattern behavior matters. That night, Mark showed up unannounced. I heard his knock and felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from disbelief. He stood there smiling, hands in his pockets. Danny, he said, you've been hard to reach. I've been busy, I replied calmly. Mind if I come in? I stepped aside. He sat on the couch like he owned it. Like he still belonged there. I heard you've been talking to the police, he said casually. I shrugged. They came to me. He laughed softly. You always worried too much. That laugh told me everything. He thought this was still a misunderstanding. A mistake that would blow over. Mark, I said gently, have you ever wondered why people trust you? He looked surprised by the question. Because you asked for help, I continued. And you make people feel needed. His smile faded slightly. That can be dangerous, I added. For the wrong reasons. He stood up. You sound paranoid, he said. I'm just trying to help. I nodded. Of course you are. He left soon after. As the door closed, I realized something important. He was nervous. He wouldn't have come otherwise. The following week, the detective called me. We linked the storage unit rentals to surveillance footage, he said. The man in the video matches your description, but the biometric markers don't. That means? I asked. It means we know it's not you. Relief washed over me slowly. But, he continued, we still need to prove intent and impersonation. I understood. Truth moves slower than lies. I kept documenting. Phone records showed calls made in my name while I was asleep. Location data placed me across town during times I was at home. Technology doesn't lie. People do. One evening, my daughter came over with dinner. She watched me organize papers. You okay, Dad? She asked. I am, I said honestly. Just tired of being invisible. She reached across the table and held my hand. You're not invisible to me. That moment gave me more strength than any legal advice. A week later, the break came. Mark made a mistake. He tried to open a new account using my name. After I had placed fraud alerts, the bank flagged it immediately. Security cameras caught him again. This time, clearly. The detective called me the next morning. We have enough, he said. We're bringing him in for questioning. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just sat down. Because I knew what was coming next would hurt in a different way. Family fallout? Mark didn't deny it at first. He tried to explain. Debt. Bad decisions. Just borrowing. He said he planned to fix it before I noticed. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The charges were filed. Identity theft. Financial fraud. Elder abuse. Seeing those words next to his name felt surreal. He had worn my identity so long, he forgot where it came from. The town reacted quietly. Some apologized. Others avoided eye contact. Reputation takes years to build. Only days to crack. But I was learning to stand steady again. One afternoon, I received a letter. An official correction. My name was being cleared from the crime report. Not erased, but corrected. The detective shook my hand when he gave it to me. You handled this well, he said. Most people would have lost it. I didn't want revenge, I replied. I wanted my name back. He nodded. That's rarer than you think. As I drove home, I realized something had changed. I wasn't carrying fear anymore. I was carrying resolve. Mark was facing consequences. But the story wasn't finished. Because clearing my name was only part of it. Rebuilding trust. With my family. With my community. And with myself. That would take more time. And I was ready to give it. Once my name was officially cleared, people expected me to relax. They thought the hard part was over. They were wrong. Clearing your name fixes the record. It doesn't fix the damage. The first place I felt it was church. I had gone there every Sunday for years. Same pew. Same faces. That morning, smiles came a second late. Not rejection. Uncertainty. People didn't know what to say to me anymore. Was I the man from the report? Or the man cleared by the police? I sat down quietly and bowed my head. At my age, you learn something important. You don't need everyone to believe you. You just need the truth to stand. After the service, an older man named Frank approached me. We'd known each other for years. I'm glad you're still here, Danny, he said simply. That was enough. At home, the phone rang less often. Some friendships don't survive discomfort. I didn't chase them. I focused on rebuilding what mattered. My finances came first. Accounts had to be closed. New ones opened. Passwords changed. Credit repaired. It felt strange starting over at 62. But strange didn't mean impossible. Every step I took felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. My lawyer stayed in touch regularly. Mark's case is moving forward, she told me one afternoon. He's looking at real consequences. I didn't ask how long. I didn't ask how severe. Justice isn't about watching someone fall. It's about knowing they can't hurt you again. Mark tried to contact me once. A voicemail. Danny, I never meant for it to go this far. I deleted it without replying. Some conversations come too late. The hardest part came with family. My daughter struggled. She loved her uncle. She trusted him. Watching that trust collapse hurt her more than it hurt me. One night she said, I keep wondering how I didn't see it. I took her hand. Because good people don't look for bad intentions, I said. That's not a weakness. Slowly, she began to heal. So did I. Weeks passed. The town moved on. Something always replaces yesterday's scandal. I started walking longer routes again. Past the park. Past the old hardware store. People nodded. Some waved. Normal returned, not loudly, but steadily. One afternoon, I received a letter from the court. Victim impact statement. They wanted to know how this had affected me. I sat with that paper for a long time. How do you explain what it feels like? To see your own name attached to a crime? I wrote simply. I lost sleep. I lost trust. I lost the comfort of my own identity. That was enough. The hearing came quietly. No dramatic courtroom scene. Just facts. Evidence. Signatures. Timelines. Mark looked smaller than I remembered. Not dangerous. Just broken. When he looked at me, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. The judge spoke firmly. Accountability. Consequences. Boundaries. When it was over, I walked out alone. Outside, the air felt lighter. Not because I won, but because I was finished carrying someone else's burden. That evening, I cooked dinner for myself. Simple meal. Quiet house. I sat at the same table where the detective once sat. And I realized something. This table had seen grief, fear, doubt. But it had also seen strength. I poured myself a cup of coffee and looked around. This was still my life. My name. My space. My story. The last thing left was acceptance. Not forgiving what happened, but accepting that it changed me. I was more careful now. More aware. But not bitter. If anything, I was calmer. Because I knew something important. If someone ever tried to take my name again, they would find a man who knows exactly who he is. When everything was finally over, I expected to feel relief. But what I felt instead was stillness. Not emptiness. Not sadness. Just a quiet understanding that something inside me had shifted. For most of my life, my name was something I never thought about. It was just a label. Something people used to get my attention. I didn't realize how much of myself was tied to it. Until someone tried to steal it. In the weeks after the case ended, I started doing small things again. I went back to the library. Sat in the same chair. Read the same newspapers. The librarian smiled and said, "Good to see you back, Mr. Brooks." Hearing my name spoken kindly again did something to me. I started volunteering twice a week. Nothing big. Just fixing shelves. Helping older folks with paperwork. Funny thing is, after what happened, people trusted me more. Not because I was perfect, but because I had been tested. One afternoon, a man about my age sat beside me and said, "I heard what happened to you." I nodded. "I don't know how you stayed so calm," he said. I smiled. "At some point," I told him, "you realize anger costs more than it pays." That was the truth. Mark was sentenced quietly. No headlines. No spectacle. I didn't attend the final hearing. I had already closed that door. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing not to carry the weight anymore. My daughter visited more often now. We talked about ordinary things. Work. Weather. The future. One evening she asked, "Dad, do you ever wish you'd done something differently?" I thought about that for a long time. "If I had," I said, "I wouldn't be who I am now." And I meant it. I was more careful, yes. But also more present. I read contracts. I asked questions. I trusted, but I verified. Not out of fear. Out of respect for myself. Some nights, I sit on the porch and listen to the quiet. Cars passing. Wind through the trees. And I think about how close I came. To losing something I never valued enough. My identity. Not just my name on paper. But my sense of who I am. If you're listening to this and thinking, "That could never happen to me," I used to think that too. And if you're listening and thinking, "I don't know how I'd survive that," let me tell you something. You're stronger than you think. Calmer than you realize. And far more capable of reclaiming your life than fear wants you to believe. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to fight quietly to protect your name, your truth, or your dignity, you're not alone. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is stand still and refuse to let the world define them. My name is Daniel Brooks. And after everything, it still belongs to me.